Hey everybody, Ed Casper here, and today we're out in the field and I want to introduce to you a special guest. This behind me right here is row 4. Row 4 gave me a hell of a time this year. I've got a 12 row 1770 planter. It's not an NT. 1.6 bushel hoppers, Delta Force V-Drive, clean sweep, twister closing wheels from Yetter. I run in furrow. It's a nice little setup. So when you're the guy that makes YouTube videos on how to set up a planter, you kind of got to make sure that you got your stuff straight. So we had the planter in over the winter. I got a retired guy that helps me, and we went through that thing tip to tail, and we were pretty confident we were ready to go. We get out that first 50 acres, you're checking everything. Had a few gremlins, one or two little brain farts on my part, but it's planting pretty good. And then another 50 acres, and you're getting out and you're checking. Everything's working pretty good. Another 100 acres, another 100. And finally you get to the point, you're like, hey, you know what? It's time to plant. Let's just go. So after about 500-600 acres, I get back over on my stuff, planting some beans, planted 40 acres, cross the creek. I start on the next 40, and my tractor goes bonkers, just crazy. Beepers, buzzers, lights, everything. Shut her down, lost my hydraulic oil. Well, I turned around and looked. I found my hydraulic oil. It was all behind me in a row. Well, somehow or another, I managed to, a rock went through the planter and somehow got kicked up and on top of one of the tires. And I don't know how long it was there until it finally decided to knock off a little elbow on my hydraulic cylinder. And there goes all my oil. Saturday afternoon, storms are coming Sunday, blah, blah, blah. Phone call, drive to Monroe. Fortunately, they had one in stock. You gotta love John Deere parts. And we were back up and running by 5:30 and got that field done that night. So I'm thinking, okay, that happens to everybody. No matter how big or how small you are, you're gonna have those. So I take off, just keep on planting. Delta Force is reading perfect, V-Drive's reading perfect. Life's pretty good. So I get all the way to the end to this field. This is at my home shop, and we put in some Bex plots. And right away, the two Bex guys, they're like, "Oh my God, what's wrong with row 4?" I'm like, I don't know. What is wrong with row 4? What's going on? Because ever since I hit that rock, row 4 has just been a little bit funny to me. Just looked funny. And I checked the U-bolts on the toolbar. They haven't moved. Still 30 inches apart from each other. Digging seed, it's fine. Covering the seed, it's fine. And every time I would get out and look, the planter had been raised. Well, they sent me a picture of the planter in the ground, and row 4 was doing this. Well, we get up and we start looking around. Somehow or another, when that rock kicked up, it broke the bolt holding the lower parallel arm to the shank. So when I would set the planter down, it would do this. So right away, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got a catastrophe on my hands. I could just imagine row 4 on all of my corn rows being blank, being royally screwed up. I get out there, I start checking everything, calling around, looking for a 1-row planter to fix it, you know, and lo and behold, this is row 4. It's not perfect, but it's pretty darn close considering what it went through. So my point is, when you get out on social media, and you know my theory on social media, if you're on social media and you're not outraged, you're probably doing it wrong. But you see guys go, well, you don't need Delta Force and you don't need Speed Tube, and I run a stock planter because I just, you know, that's great. You're right. You don't need all that stuff. You really don't. I got a guy down the road, he's since retired. He used to tell me that he would take an orange flag and wrap it on his hex shaft. And if the orange flag was flipping, the hex shaft was turning. He said, we just figured that we were dropping seeds, so we kept going. And he made it through the 80s. So if he can make it through the 80s with an orange flag, you're right, you don't need all of these fancy attachments. But that's not really what we're talking about here, because if you get down to that level, you don't need air conditioning, you don't need auto steer, you don't need 3 24-row planters to finish your 2,000 acres. Sorry. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is, how can we spend our money? We're not worried about the neighbor, we're worried about us. How can we spend our money to try to get control over certain things, knowing that we can't get control over everything? And I think in this example, with Delta Force keeping that row in the ground and V-Drive not being reliant on chains or sprockets or hex shafts skipping or giving us fits, this is what happens when the planter unit isn't exactly perfect. And I didn't even see it, and it's shame on me, but when you turn around and look, row 4 is behind one of my tanks. And Delta Force and V-Drive were reading good. Like I said, from now on, I'll know to get out and check the planter with it still in the ground. That's the big lesson that I learned. So just a quick note for you. You know, like I say, here, I'm the guy that's supposed to make these videos and know what I'm doing, and I still screwed things up. But the technology I had on my planter saved me from having a catastrophe. So with that, thanks for watching. Give me a call, 309-208-0117. We're here to help. Thanks, and we'll talk to you soon.